When I look back at everything, it sometimes feels surreal because I never started with the idea of becoming some global success story. I started with curiosity, a lot of stubbornness, and a desire to solve problems that I thought were important. So if I trace it all the way back, it begins in South Africa, where I spent most of my time buried in books and tinkering with computers, discovering programming by teaching myself how to code at around 12, and selling a game I had made called Blastar, which wasn't impressive by today's standards, but showed me that I could build things people might value. And that idea stuck with me, pushing me to think beyond what was around me. So eventually I left for Canada and then ended up in the United States, because I believed that was where the future was being built, and I wanted to contribute to it. At the University of Pennsylvania, I studied physics and economics, because to me, understanding how the universe works and how humans operate within it seemed like a powerful combination. And once I graduated, I didn't want to take a conventional path. I wanted to start something that could scale with the internet, which was just beginning its explosive growth. So I jumped into entrepreneurship with Zip2, a company that put business directories and maps online at a time when that wasn't common. And after selling it, I went on to build X.com, which eventually became PayPal, a step that taught me the importance of financial infrastructure and how the world could move money more efficiently. But for me, success wasn't about stopping after one or two wins. After PayPal, I asked myself what problems would matter most for humanity's future, and that led me towards space, energy, and transportation, which is why I founded SpaceX, a company many people thought was insane. Because the idea of a private company making rockets and sending them into orbit seemed impossible. But I believed that for life to survive long-term, we needed to be a multi-planet species. So we pushed through failure after failure until we finally succeeded with the Falcon 1 and built from there, eventually landing rockets, reusing them, and lowering launch costs, proving that the impossible maybe just takes a bit longer. Around the same time, I got involved with Tesla when it was still a small electric car startup with big goals. And despite all the challenges, near bankruptcy, skepticism, and countless moments where the company could have collapsed, we kept pushing because I believed the world needed sustainable transportation, and that if we didn't build it, who would? And now electric vehicles have become mainstream in a way that once seemed far-fetched. SolarCity, now part of Tesla, was another piece of the puzzle, since transitioning the world to sustainable energy requires generation as well as consumption. And after that came projects like The Boring Company, which grew from my frustration with traffic and the idea that tunnels could help solve urban congestion, and Neuralink, aimed at developing ways for humans to interface directly with computers so we can keep pace with artificial intelligence. And of course, later on, becoming involved with Twitter, rethinking how public digital communication could work. But through all of these companies and challenges, the through line has always been the same. I look at the future, imagines what it should be, notice the gap between that future and reality, and then decide to try to build something that closes that gap, even if people say it's unrealistic or impossible. Because I genuinely believe humanity thrives when we take big risks on bold ideas, and if my journey looks like a success story to some, what it actually feels like from my perspective is a continuous cycle of problem solving, learning from failure, ignoring the noise, working extremely hard, and imagining a future that is worth striving for. So when people ask how I became successful, I'd say I didn't focus on success itself, but on pursuing ideas that mattered to me, taking risks others wouldn't, surrounding myself with brilliant teams, and never letting fear of failure stop me from trying to build the future I wanted to see. After the early breakthroughs that shaped my path, the next phase of my journey became about scale, pressure, and the growing realization that the ideas I had committed myself to were so large that they demanded every ounce of focus, every risk I could tolerate, and every failure I was willing to confront. Because once you start something like SpaceX or Tesla, you quickly understand that these aren't just companies, they're missions. And missions have no pause button. So as SpaceX moved from Falcon 1 to Falcon 9, the stakes skyrocketed, literally and figuratively, and every launch became a test not only of engineering but of perseverance, especially after those early explosions that nearly bankrupted us. Moments when we had just enough money for one last attempt, and everything depended on whether the rocket succeeded. And when that fourth launch finally reached orbit, it felt like the universe had given us permission to keep trying, a green light that changed everything. But while SpaceX was fighting for survival, Tesla was going through its own battles, trying to convince the world that electric cars weren't toys or niche luxuries, but the future of transportation. And that future required us to build something people wanted, something fast, beautiful, safe, and desirable enough to break through decades of skepticism about EVs. So we pushed ahead with the Roadster, then Model S, pushing technology to its limits, and I poured everything I had financially, mentally, emotionally into both companies. Sometimes moving money from one to save the other, because I believed their missions were intertwined. Sustainable energy on Earth and expanding consciousness beyond Earth. Two paths that, if successful, could fundamentally change humanity's trajectory. And during this period, I learned that success often requires embracing discomfort, loneliness, and the constant judgment of people who think you're crazy, because when you go against established industries like automotive manufacturing or aerospace, you're not just competing with companies, you're competing with decades of entrenched thinking, and that means you have to be willing to push harder, think differently, and accept that failure is not just possible but inevitable. Yet you keep going anyway. And as Tesla slowly began proving its capabilities with superchargers, battery innovations, and safety ratings that shocked the industry, SpaceX was building toward milestones like docking with the International Space Station, a moment that validated not just a company but an entire new model for space exploration. And around this time, I began to think even further ahead about how to accelerate the shift to sustainable energy more broadly, which fueled the idea of merging Tesla's vehicle mission with a broader energy vision. Solar power, battery storage, and integrated systems that could redefine how homes and industries interacted with the grid, all part of a bigger picture that had been forming in my mind since before Tesla even existed. And as the world finally started to recognize that electrification wasn't optional but essential, I realized that the responsibility was growing too, because success didn't mean easing off the throttle. It meant pushing harder than ever to scale production, build infrastructure, and prove that a small group of determined people could challenge some of the oldest, and most powerful industries on Earth. And so, this stage of my story was defined by momentum, pressure, relentless work, and the growing awareness that the ambitions I had set in motion were no longer just personal goals, but global expectations that required me and everyone around me to keep pushing beyond what seemed possible. And as the story moved forward into the next stage of my life, I realized that success wasn't a destination, but a constant pressure system. A force that kept increasing the moment you broke through the previous barrier. And the world started watching more closely, waiting for the next big leap or the next big failure. Because that's the nature of doing anything unconventional. And around this time, SpaceX was scaling faster than ever, with Falcon 9 launches becoming more routine, landing boosters becoming almost normal, and the dream of Starship taking shape in a dusty patch of land in South Texas, where we were building the largest rocket ever attempted. Not because it was impressive, but because I believed it was necessary if humanity wanted to reach Mars. And while this was happening, Tesla was facing its own critical moment, the Model 3 production ramp, which was easily one of the hardest chapters in my life. A time when I practically lived in the factory, sleeping on the floor, walking the lines, solving issues, one bolt, one robot, one software bug at a time, because if the Model 3 failed, Tesla would die. And saving it wasn't an abstract idea, but a day-to-day battle fought with exhaustion, stress, and the belief that the mission of sustainable energy was worth the sacrifice. And during this period, I learned that leadership isn't about giving inspiring speeches, but about being there in the trenches, showing people you're willing to endure the same hardships. And that belief helped push us through what many called production hell, transforming Tesla from a struggling EV startup into a global manufacturer capable of reshaping the entire auto industry. And at the same time, SpaceX was preparing Crew Dragon, the capsule that would return the United States to human spaceflight after nearly a decade. A moment that wasn't just an engineering victory, but proof that private companies could do what once only nations could. And seeing the astronauts launch from American soil aboard a rocket built by our team was one of